morning, the Prime Minister has insisted that the 4-week lockdown in England, which began today, will be enough to reduce the rate of coronavirus infections. Boris Johnson said he realised that people were weary and fed up, but there was light at the end of the tunnel. Non-essential shops have all now shut. Pubs and restaurants can only serve takeaways. And in an unexpected move, the Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, announced that the UK's furlough scheme for those temporarily laid off has been extended until the end of March to give more support for workers facing yet more uncertainty. The furlough scheme will now apply to the whole of the UK for the next 5 months. The government will pay 80% of wages for hours not worked for employees affected by the pandemic. For those who are self-employed, support has been extended to a similar level. It's been increased to 80% of average profits until January. Here's our Deputy Political Editor, Vicky Young.
They tried to open up the economy, but once again the shutters have come down across England. And now emergency bailouts have become long-term support. The government helping to pay the wages of millions of people for a whole year. But today the Prime Minister insisted there was light at the end of the tunnel.
Across the whole of the United Kingdom, people are engaged in a huge joint effort to put the coronavirus back in its box. I know that many of you are anxious, weary and quite frankly fed up with the very mention of this virus. But I want to assure you this is not a repeat of the spring.
The Chancellor was lending a hand at a housing development. He's been saying it's time to wind down the furlough scheme, not build it up again. But Rishi Sunak has gone from eat out to help out to eating his words.
Political opponents have chosen to attack the government for trying to keep the economy functioning and to make sure the support we provide encourages people to keep working. But to anyone in the real world, that's just the thing you have to do when the circumstances change.
There have been several versions of the Chancellor's support plan in recent weeks. Labour said the furlough scheme should have been extended sooner. The delay had cost jobs and livelihoods.
The Chancellor can change his mind at the last minute, Mr. Speaker, but businesses can't. We need a Chancellor who's in front of the problems we face, not one who's always a step behind.
And the First Minister of Scotland said uncertainty over wage support had had dire consequences.
Unfortunately, because many businesses and workers expected the existing furlough scheme to end at the end of October, and I know people in this we all know people in this circumstance, made people redundant, and I think that is deeply regrettable.
The seats are empty at this hair salon in Cardiff. Wales is in the middle of a 2-week lockdown, so owner Helen has put her staff back on furlough.
The news today has been, in one way, a big relief, knowing that we'll have the backing going forward, which is a huge help. But it also, what does that mean? Extending it to March, does that mean we are in for more lockdowns? Are we going to be on this total roller coaster, open, close?
You criticise political opponents who call for the furlough scheme to be extended, and now you've done it. What do you say to those who've lost their jobs because you didn't provide that certainty earlier?
We need to look at alternative systems of support to encourage the economy to keep moving, to get people back into employment. That was why the job support system, the JSS, was developed, and a different package of measures. But now, as we face this autumn surge, it's right to go to furlough, and that's what we're doing.
The Chancellor has spent hundreds of billions of pounds propping up the economy during this pandemic. But after being accused of ignoring the needs of workers in northern English cities, Wales and Scotland, he's now come up with even more. Another huge financial commitment stretching into next year. That's reassuring for many, but others worry about the longer-term implications for the economy. The brief optimism of the summer has faded quickly. Vicky Young, BBC News, Westminster.